Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel from Evelyn and Peter, and today I have this crochet top to share with you all. You can find the free pattern on my blog, EvelynAndPeter.com. It's in sizes extra small through 5X. That is the free written pattern on my blog, and I recommend pulling it up as you watch the video tutorial and referencing that free pattern as you go. The stitch counts and row counts will be different for each size depending on what you're making, so just make sure you read that written pattern as well. This pattern is available as a kit with Lion Brand. The kit comes with all the yarn you need to make your top. You can customize the colors and switch out the different yarn colors to see what you like best. It also comes with a copy of the printable PDF pattern download. I'll let you guys know whenever there's any good Lion Brand kit sales happening. Make sure you're subscribed to my newsletter. That's where I will let you guys know. I'll tell you when there's coupon codes, if I'm having good sales on my patterns. You will be the first to know whenever I have a new pattern coming out. I always send an email out first before posting about it on socials. And then you can also get direct links to all of my stuff, and I like to throw in some coupon codes every once in a while as well. So to subscribe, you can just go to my blog and then type in your email, and I'll send out a newsletter once or maybe twice a month. This pattern is also available in my Etsy shop and in my Ravelry shop. So I will link to all of that in the description, plus I'll have a little link you can click on in the video. A little bit about this pattern. This one was really fun to make. You might recognize the technique that I used because I used it in the Starlight View throw that I have. Throughout the pattern, you'll be working with one yarn and then carrying the second yarn along with you as you go. So a little close up. So that's what gives it the unique look that it has. This isn't one yarn here. This is just two yarns mixed together. The second color that I used has random stripes throughout. You can also get a solid second color if you don't want the random striping. I just thought it was cute, a little added touch with no extra effort in the pattern. So make sure you're paying attention and checking this video tutorial to see how you carry that second yarn with you. It'll be the same throughout, just bringing that second yarn along with you as you go and only stitching with the yarn A. It has a wide neckline here. I wanted it wider so that I could wear it off the shoulder. If you prefer to have a little bit of a tighter neckline, you can always add more rounds here of the trim of the neckline to kind of close it up a bit if you want it to sit comfortably on both shoulders. This one does, but you know, if you're moving around and everything, it might slip off of one side. I don't know. I think it's the cutest part about this top, but people have preferences, so you can easily adjust that. And then there's cuffs at the bottom of the sleeve here. If you don't want cuffs, you could just make your sleeves a little bit shorter, or you can just wear them long and oversized like this. So I hope you guys like this pattern. It's really fun to make. It's worked from the bottom up, same stitch repeat throughout. So once you learn it, you'll be good to go, and it works up pretty quickly. I hope you enjoy it, and I will catch you in the next tutorial.
For this design, you are going to need lightweight yarn. I'm using Lion Brand's 24/7 cotton DK yarn. I love this yarn. There's so many great colors. You're going to need to pick out two different colors for this project. I have it in a solid and then in a DK print. You can get it in both solids, or you can try two different prints. It doesn't matter. You'll just need two different colors of yarn. All of the exact yardage that you will need is on my blog, and it shows it for all 9 sizes, so you can check that out. You're also going to need a 5mm crochet hook, a needle to weave in your ends, a pair of scissors, and then you'll want a couple stitch markers as well. So I'm going to begin with the back panel. All of the panels start off the exact same way, just your stitch count will be different. So I'm going to begin with a slip knot. And then we're going to start with a row of foundation single crochet stitches. If you don't want to do foundation stitches and you would rather start with a chain, you can do that as well. Just chain one more than the number listed for your stitch count in row 1, and then work 1 single crochet in the second chain from the hook and back across for the correct count. But I'm going to do foundation single crochet, so I just did 2 chains. Now I'm going to rotate my work slightly and insert my hook into the back bump of the first chain that I made, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first loop only, and then yarn over, pull through 2 loops for 1 foundation single crochet. Now on the bottom of that stitch that I just made, I'm going to stick my hook under both of the loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first loop only, and then yarn over, pull through both loops for a second single crochet. Again, in the bottom of that previous stitch, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1, and then yarn over, pull through 2. You're just going to continue repeating this until you have the correct stitch count for your size. So I'm coming up on my very last stitch in my row 1 here. So instead of doing my final yarn over and pull through on the last 2 loops, I'm going to take color B and just place it on my hook. That way we can lock color B in when we are moving on to the next row. It's there for us. So I just have it laid on my hook, and I'm just going to take yarn A still and do my final yarn over and pull through, making sure that color B is still on my hook there. And then you can see it's just looped in to that stitch. That way we can begin to carry it along with us as we work the stitches in row 2. So instead of just yarning over and pulling through to start the turning chain for the next row, we want to carry yarn B up along with us. So we're always going to be using yarn A for our stitches. We're never going to be using yarn B, but we want to bring yarn B and carry it along. So you will be placing it on your hook and bringing it along with you as you go, but the stitches will always be made with yarn A. So I'm going to take yarn B, and when we work our turning chains, you're going to place the yarn from front to back over your hook. So you're just placing it on top of your hook from front to back. And then once you have your yarn laying there, you're just going to take yarn A just as you normally would and work a chain. So yarn over and pull through. And then we're going to be chaining 3. So again, place yarn B on top of your hook from front to back. And then just take yarn A and pull through again, working your second chain. So we have the yarn B laying there, and then we just work a chain. We need to do it one more time, so place yarn B front to back on your hook, and then work your third and final chain. So we have our row 1, plus we have our chain 3 to start the next row. So once we've chained 3, we can turn our work. And now we're going to be working row 2. So the chain 3 does count as 1 double crochet stitch. Now you're going to yarn over, and in that very first stitch, the same spot where the chain 3 is coming out of, you're going to insert your hook. Make sure that yarn B is placed on top of your hook as well when you do this next step. So just working a regular double crochet, but we're bringing yarn B with us. So we have it just laying on the hook. It should naturally just lay there as you go. And then yarn over, pull through. We have 3 loops on our hook. You can leave yarn B where it's at for now. Yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops only. And now again, we need to start carrying yarn B up to the height of our stitch. So you'll want to place it on your hook from front to back. So just like you did in the chain area, just place it on your hook and then yarn over, pull through 2. So now you'll see the little loop that yarn B creates, and it's up there at the same height as the top of our double crochet stitch. So now we're going to skip the next stitch, and then in the following is when we're going to begin our V stitch, and we're going to be making sure yarn B is coming along as well. So yarn over, skip 1 stitch, and the following insert your hook, and then again you'll want yarn B to just be laying on top of your hook. It should naturally just fall there. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, Now we want to take yarn B and bring it up to the current height. So place it on your hook from front to back, and then just yarn over and pull through those last 2 loops to complete your first double crochet of the V-stitch. So now we're going to chain 1, and we're going to do the same thing that we do with the starting chain. Place yarn B on your hook from front to back, just like you did at the start of the row. So you can either pick it up with your hook, or you can use your hands to place it on your hook from front to back, and then just yarn over and pull through, creating the chain. And now we're going to do another double crochet stitch into that same spot. So yarn over, insert your hook into the same stitch, make sure yarn B is laying across your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then we want to bring up yarn B to the current height, so place on your hook from front to back, and then yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So that right there is the V-stitch, and that's the same thing that you're going to be repeating across the row now. So now we're going to be skipping 2 stitches in between. So count out the next 2 stitches, and that's what you're going to skip over. And then in the following stitch is where you're going to do your next V-stitch. So insert your hook, make sure yarn B is laying on top, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, place yarn B from front to back on your hook, and then yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Again, you can use your hook to pick it up or use your fingers, whichever way is more comfortable as you get going. Now we need to chain 1. So place yarn B on your hook from front to back and chain 1, and then work your second double crochet, yarn over, insert into the same stitch, make sure yarn B is laying on your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, place yarn B from front to back, and yarn over, pull through both loops. So we're just going to continue repeating this across the row, taking yarn B with us as we go, and skipping 2 stitches in between. It was only at the beginning where you skip 1 stitch. Now we're going to be skipping 2, and then working a V-stitch into the following, skipping 2, working a V-stitch into the following, and I will meet you at the end of the row to show you how to finish it off. Okay, so we're coming up to the end of the row here. We have 3 stitches remaining. We're going to skip 2, and in the final stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, place yarn B front to back, yarn over, pull through 2. And that is our final double crochet of the row, and that completes row 2. So your stitch count will be the same here. Those chains also count as a stitch, so you have your starting chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and then you'll count the top of each double crochet and the chain 1 space are their own stitch. And now we can begin row 3. So row 3, we're going to do the same thing, working our chain 3 to turn. So place yarn B front to back and chain, place yarn B front to back and chain, and then place yarn B front to back and chain. So a total of 3 chains, and that way we're bringing yarn B up with us. And now row 3 is very similar to row 2, and we'll be repeating row 3 for the remainder of the panel. So this is the row that you'll be repeating for the rest of the panel. So we're going to work our first double crochet into the very first stitch, yarn over, insert your hook into the first stitch, make sure yarn B is laying on top, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, bring yarn B up from front to back, and then work your final yarn over and pull through. Now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, so you're skipping the double crochet and the chain 1, and then in the following double crochet is where you will be working your V-stitch. So just as we did before, yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, making sure you're skipping 2, yarn B is placed along your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, place yarn B from front to back, and do your final yarn over and pull through. Now do your chain, place yarn B from front to back, work your chain, and then work your second double crochet into that very same stitch, creating your first V stitch of the row. And we're just going to be repeating that all the way across. So you're going to skip over the next 2 stitches. And in the following stitch is where you're going to work your first double crochet, and then your chain 1, and then your second double crochet all into the same stitch. So we just want to make sure we bring yarn B with us, and it's the same movements to carry that yarn as we go. Once you get through the first few rows, it really just becomes second nature, and it's really easy to keep going. Your fingers will get used to it, and you'll be used to working with those 2 strands instead of 1 like normal with crochet. So I promise you'll pick it up really fast. And then it actually works up really quickly as well once you get the hang of it. So go ahead and keep working your double crochet V stitches across the row, skipping 2 in between, and then I will meet you at the end of the row to show you how to complete it. So we're at the end of the row here. I have 2 stitches remaining. Don't forget that the chain 3 does count as a stitch, so that is one of the 2 that are remaining. And then we have just 1 double crochet there as well. So we're going to skip over the double crochet, and then in the top of the chain 3, insert your hook. You'll want to make sure that yarn B is placed on your hook as well. And then we're just going to work 1 final double crochet stitch into the top of that chain. Don't forget to bring yarn B up with you on that last pull through. And now that completes row 3, and that is the row we're just going to continue to repeat over and over for the remainder of the back panel. So each size will have a different amount of rows that you need to work up. So just pay attention to that for whatever size you're making. So you can begin the following row by working your chain 3, bringing up yarn B as you go. Turn your work, and then just work your V stitches across. If you need to, you can go back and rewatch this last row that I showed you if you need a reminder, and then just take note of how many rows you need for your size. Okay, so now I have my back panel complete. I've just repeated row 3 over and over. If you want to make adjustments to the length, you can just continue repeating row 3 until you have the length that you want, or you can take out rows as well if you want it shorter. And then you can just fasten off your work. You don't need a long tail on this one. We'll leave long tails on the front panel for the seaming. So just tie off and then set aside your back panel. And now we need to repeat a portion of this for the front panel. So go back if you need to and rewatch the video. Your stitch count will be the same for the front panel as it was your back panel. And then rows 1, 2, and 3 exactly the same. And then you will repeat row 3 for the amount of rows that it calls for your size. We are going to be stopping short of about 4 rows on the front panel compared to the back. So don't do as many rows on the front panel. We're only going to work a part of the way and then do some neckline shaping. So just make sure you check that written pattern so you know how many rows you need. And now we are going to begin with the neckline shaping. So if you want, you can place a stitch marker into the stitch where you need to stop for the first row of shaping. You don't have to. All the stitch counts are listed in the pattern. I just placed one here so you guys can easily see. But in that first row of shaping, you can check the stitch count for your size and then count in from right to left and place that stitch marker into that stitch if you want, just so you remember to stop. But we're doing the exact same thing as we have for the other rows. Work your double crochet into the first stitch and then skip over 2 and then continue with your normal double crochet V-stitch repeat, skipping 2 stitches in between. And then each size will repeat our regular skip 2, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet a different amount of times. And then once you've repeated that the amount that you need for your size, you're just going to finish off by skipping the next stitch and then working a final double crochet into the following stitch to complete the row. So it's just as if we were completing our work at the or completing our row just at any other normal end of the row. You finish with a double crochet. So now that's where we're stopping for our first shaping row. We don't need to go all the way across, and this will be considered the end of the row. Your stitch counts are listed if you want to check that. And now for the next 3 rows, we just have these short rows to do here. So chain 3 just like you normally would, turn your work, and then for the following 3 rows, just repeat row 3 just like any other row. So the only difference is now that it's a shorter row than the previous. So just like you normally would, chain 3, work a double crochet into that first stitch, and then skip 2 and work your double crochet V-stitches across the row. When you get to the end, you can turn your work again, chain 3, repeat row 3, and then again chain 3 and repeat row 3 for a final time. So we'll have a total of 4 rows here for our neckline shaping. So once you have a total of 4 rows, you can just go ahead and fasten off your work. You can keep yarn B short when you fasten off, but for yarn A, you'll want to pull enough yarn so that you can sew the last row that we just made here to the back panel. So you don't need it too long, just enough to sew these stitches to the back panel. And then once that is complete, we need to repeat the same thing on the other side for our second shoulder. So now with your panel out in front of you and the finished shoulder on the right hand side, you need to take both yarn A and yarn B and create a slip knot. So we have both yarns connected here. And we're just going to hold on to yarn A as our working yarn and have yarn B there along with us, and counting from the left side of your panel now towards the center of your shirt. You're going to count the same amount of stitches that you have on that first shaping row on the other side. So make sure you pull up that stitch count, and then from left to right, don't forget to include the starting chain as a stitch. Count in the correct amount of stitches that you need for your size. It'll be the same stitch count as that first row of shaping on the other side, and then just insert your hook into that stitch and using yarn A, slip stitch to join. So now our yarn is attached, and we will be working the same amount of stitches that we did on the previous side. So now you just need to chain 3, which does count as our first double crochet stitch. So you'll want to make sure you're taking yarn B and pulling it up with you as you go. So place on your hook from front to back, work your first chain, front to back, work your first chain, your second chain, and front to back, your third chain. So that counts as our first double crochet stitch. Once you have your chain 3, you can work your double crochet into that very same stitch as the join. So now we have 2 stitches, and then we can go ahead and go right back into our normal stitch repeat, skip over the next 2 stitches, and then work a double crochet V-stitch into the following. So now we're just right back into our normal stitches that we've been doing, skip 2, work a double crochet V-stitch, bringing yarn B along with us as we go, and then just do this all the way to the end of the row. When you get to the end, go ahead, chain 3, turn your work, and just repeat row 3. And then again, chain 3, turn your work, repeat row 3, and then finally do one more row 3 repeat. So you'll have a total of 4 rows on this side, just like you did on the previous side. So go ahead and just repeat those rows, and I will meet you after that. So once you've worked those 4 rows, you can go ahead and fasten off your work. Again, you don't need a long amount of yarn for yarn B. You can cut that one short, but for yarn A, you'll want to leave just enough yarn to seam this last row to your back panel. And next we have to work up our 2 sleeves. So our sleeves are made up the same way as the back panel, except our stitch count will be different. So you can just check the stitch count you need for your size that you're making. And then if you need to, you can go back and rewatch how to begin with row 1, 2, and 3. Just as we did on the back panel in the beginning. You should have it memorized by now, but feel free to go back and rewatch. Check your stitch count with the written pattern, as this will be different for each size. And then it starts off the same way. Start with a slip knot with yarn A. Work your foundation single crochet for row 1. Work row 2. And then work row 3, and then go ahead and just repeat row 3 as many times as it calls for the size that you're making. There's no shaping in the sleeves. We're going to leave these just rectangular and long enough to have a little cuff on the end. And then if you find that you need to adjust the length of your sleeves, if you want them longer or shorter, or you don't want the cuff, or you want a bigger cuff, you can easily adjust that by just adding or removing as many rows as you want to. And then after you complete the first sleeve, go ahead and work the second sleeve the exact same way. You want to start off with a long tail at the beginning and finish with a long tail as well. Once you have all 4 panels complete, we can begin joining them together. You will want to be placing the right side of your front panel and the right side of your back panel together. It really doesn't matter which sides you want to be the right side and the wrong side. I have mine as row 1 being the right side, so I'm going to place my 2 panels together, right sides facing, and then we are going to use our needle and the tail of yarn that we left on the front panel shoulders to sew across. So we're going to want to do it on both sides here. And it doesn't matter what technique you use either. I just use the mattress stitch. The most important part is just making sure that you have the stitches lined up correctly. So don't forget that that chain 3 does count as the first stitch. So that's where you will want to begin sewing, is on that chain 3, and then just make sure it's lined up with the last stitch of the other panel so that each stitch is lined up correctly. But totally personal preference, however you want to join your panels, it does not matter. I'm using the mattress stitch and just sewing across. You can use your hook and slip stitch across. You can use whichever sewing method you prefer. It does not matter at all for this design. So you can go ahead and sew across on this first side here, and then do the same thing on the second side as well. Now that we have our front and our back panel sewn together, we need to join in the sleeve. So I just have my front and back panels laying out in front of me here. You can see the seam at the shoulder. It blends in really, really well. But that is where we want to line up our sleeve panel. So I just have a stitch marker is in the center stitch of the first row of my sleeve, and it's also in the shoulder seam that we just did. So I have that joined together, and then I have another stitch marker at the end of the sleeve there, and I have the same amount of rows on either side. So I worked down and placed and kind of flattened my panels and make sure that they're not bunched up. And then I have an even amount of stitches on either side. So you can count the rows on your front and back panel and make sure that you have the same amount on either side, just so that the sleeves are nice and even. And then you're going to use the same seaming method that we just did, and your tail of yarn. Place your sleeve and your sweater right sides facing, and then just seam across, and then repeat on the other side. And once you have them seamed at the top of the sleeve there, you just need to fold your sweater together so that the right sides are still facing and it looks like a shirt now, and then use that tail of yarn and seam from the cuff to the underarm, and then the underarm down the hem. If you had enough yarn left over where you joined the sleeve in here at the shoulder, you can just keep going down with it and go all the way down to the bottom of the hem, and then take that tail of yarn that we left at the cuff and sew up to the underarm, and then just repeat on the other side. So after that, you can turn your sweater right side out, and we're just going to do one round of neckline trim. So with yarn A, we're just going to place our hook into the stitch just to the left of the shoulder seam on the left hand side of us. It honestly doesn't matter where you join in. You can place your hook into any stitch wherever you prefer. And we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch along the back. So join in, chain 1, work a single crochet into that same stitch, and then work 1 single crochet into each stitch along the back neckline. And then when you reach the other side at the other shoulder seam, you can just continue down those 4 rows of shaping that we have on the front panel. Your stitch count is not crucial here. You can work approximately 2 single crochet for each of those 4 rows that we have, and then work 1 single crochet along the front of the neckline, and then continue up that second side with those 4 rows of shaping on the other side as well. And then once you get back around, you can just slip stitch to join into the first single crochet that you made where we joined in. After that, all you have left to do is to weave in any of your ends that you have remaining. Thank you guys so much for watching this video tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video.